Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome back to the Conviction Fiction podcast, where we take real stories, real struggles, and real triumphs and turn them into blueprints for freedom. Not the kind of freedom that just means being out of prison, but the kind that lets you live fully without the weight of your past holding you hostage. I'm your host, Antoine Rivers, and today we're talking about something that doesn't get discussed nearly enough: what happens after the homecoming celebration fades. Because let's be real, right? The release date is not the finish line. It's the first step into a marathon that nobody really trained for. The person coming home has been counting down the days, but so has the family waiting on the outside. You both dreamed about this moment, maybe even romanticized it a little. But the truth is, reentry is messy. It's emotional. It's both beautiful and frustrating at the same time, but it's sacred all at once. So, in this episode, we're breaking down 5 essential things loved ones can do to truly support someone coming home, not out of guilt or obligation, but out of understanding, patience, and love rooted in purpose. My name is Antoine, and let's get into the conviction fiction. Hey, welcome back to the Conviction Fiction. I'm Antoine Rivers, your host. Now, when a person comes home after incarceration, they're stepping into a world that feels familiar but foreign at the same time. Imagine spending years in a place where every move is dictated: when to wake up, when to eat, when to speak, and then suddenly freedom hands you 1,000 choices before breakfast. Now, that kind of shift can be overwhelming. Freedom can actually feel heavy when you've been deprived of it for so long, right? That's why the first thing loved ones need to offer, in my opinion, this is not a rule book, but like these are 5 things through my experience working on the podcast and just being in reentry for so long and just in this field. The first things that loved ones need to offer isn't advice or expectations, it's space. We got to give them room to find their own rhythm, space to decompress, to just exist without the pressure of being perfect. I've seen people come home and freeze up in the grocery store aisles because they couldn't process having 30 kinds of cereal to choose from. They just freeze up like, what? They make all of this? Others can't sleep without the hum of some type of noise because silence now feels like isolation, like you're thrown in a hole. These are small things, but they're real adjustments. Okay. When family jumps right into what's next mode, you got a job yet? When you going to get a car? You still talking to that caseworker? Why are you talking to that girl over there? It can unintentionally trigger anxiety or shame. Instead, try saying like, hey man, take your time, or I'm here when you're ready. Okay. Because grace means understanding that freedom requires relearning. It's the opposite of judgment. Grace says, I see you trying, even if it's slow. Sometimes that means letting silence sit in a room without trying to fix it. I mean, let's just be honest. Sometimes it means watching them struggle with a phone or job application and waiting until they ask for help. And I say waiting until they ask for help because it's going to take some effort from us also for those people that are in the reentry process. I mean, you can let pride prevent you from asking for help, but you got someone there sitting waiting, watch you in frustration trying to fill out a job application, but you don't want to ask them for help. So it's a twofold thing. And that's the whole thing, guys. The person coming home is rebuilding more than a life. They're rebuilding an identity. Um, and you're in that process. They're asking questions like, who am I now? What does success look like outside here? And well, I'm not in the walls no more. Those questions can take time to answer. So if you love them, remember, you don't have to push, just be present. If they've done the work, they're going to come around, right? Presence is louder than pressure, and grace That quiet patient is what keeps the bridge of trust cracking under the weight of expectation. So let's give them a little space. I'm not going to hold y'all long on this show, but I definitely want to go into this topic because rebuilding trust, and a lot of families don't understand how to deal with someone that has been incarcerated. Now, for me, the topic of this show actually came from my wife. My wife pulled up on me. She was like, I deal with a lot with you. I was like, yeah, you probably really do. You probably do, right? And that's only because I sometimes get into survival mode when I'm out here. I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that all the stuff that I have going on with the books or, with business or working in the corporate world or doing this podcast, that everything is perfect. What I will say is that I have been given grace, and I look at those opportunities when we can have a conversation, me and my wife, or even with my family, to say, hey, look, um, this is what I see, right? This is what I see. This is what I believe. I'm going to give you your space. Um, and like I said in the last episode, right? You have to rebuild that trust, and that's brick by brick, right? Trust is like oxygen in a relationship. You don't realize how much you need it until it's gone. For many families, incarceration didn't just separate you physically, it created emotional fractures that time alone can't heal. Maybe there were lies told, maybe you stole, or there were broken promises, or just just cycles of disappointment again and again and again, even before you got sentenced. This all happened before you got sentenced, before you got sent to jail, or before you did the crime or whatever you did to get locked up. There were a lot of things, lies, broken, stolen property, just disappointment. So when they come home, or when you come home, there's joy, but there's also hesitation. Both sides are looking at each other like, I really believe, can I trust this version of you? Right? I see you, but I do know how you work. And that's okay. Rebuilding trust isn't a moment, it's a process. Think of it like laying bricks, right? Each day, one small act stacks on top of another. And that's why on this podcast, I try to encourage my listeners, especially the ones that have traveled the road similar to what I've traveled. You've done some time and you're out now. You can't build this house overnight. You're gonna have to do one small thing at a time and then count each small victory as what it is. It's a fucking victory, right? It's a victory that is going to one day, with faith, you got to keep doing it. You can't like put up 10 bricks, one brick at a time, and then go and do something stupid to knock it down. Right. And I say that because it changes. Like your whole trajectory can change when you're out here. Showing up when you say you will. Being honest even when it's uncomfortable. Admitting mistakes instead of hiding them. Saying I'm sorry and truly meaning it. For the person coming home, it's tempting to want instant redemption, to say, hey, I've changed, just believe me. But trust doesn't grow from words, it grows from repetition. And for the loved ones out there, remember, holding someone accountable doesn't mean holding their past over their head. You can set boundaries and still extend grace. You can say, I love you, but I need to see consistency. That's not punishment. That's not punishment at all. That's partnership, right? So let's be honest with ourselves, though, man. Sometimes both sides needs to unlearn survival habits. In prison, trust can be dangerous. You learn to move quietly, not to expose weakness, not to depend on anyone. And then all of a sudden you're thrust home, and those instincts can make you seem distant or defensive. That's why patience matters, because trust isn't about proving innocent, it's about proving intent. Well, and intent is one of those things. Like what they say is 3/5 of the law. It looks small, And those intentions can be small, deliberate actions, showing just showing respect, showing effort, just showing up. Now, it's not the most glamorous work, but one day you'll look back like I have done over the past few years, just consistently, constantly look back and realize that those bricks became a foundation. Because when trust is rebuilt, connection will follow. And connection is what makes second chances sustainable. That's all what we're about. We're trying to make these chances that we got work for us for the long term. Now, another thing families can do or that they fail to do is sometimes um they hinder and try to save. Now this one might hit home for some of you because when you love somebody, it's basically in your nature to want to save them. You see them struggling, trying to navigate job applications, trying to get a job, trying to get work around or work with their probation officer, trying to get them back and forth to work and back, or just, transportation, or just having a simple budget, having them to purchase the things that they need instead of the things that they want. And you just want to jump in and just fix it. You just want to save them. But here's the hard truth. You can't rescue someone into growth. I'm going to say that again. You cannot rescue someone into growth. There's a difference between helping and saving. Helping means empowering someone to stand up on their own 2 feet. Saving means keeping them dependent on your strength for them to be able to survive. You ever seen a butterfly try to emerge from its cocoon? Ever seen that? I have time. I was locked up in prison, man. Nature used to kind of fascinate me a little bit. I was like, all this stuff going on. I mean, I'm seeing this little butterfly struggling, it's pushing. It looks like it's hurting. I'm like, I want to help it, I want to help it, like get up out of the cocoon. You know what I'm saying? But that butterfly would never develop strong enough to have wings to fly if you bust them out of the cocoon. The struggle is what gives strength. And reentry works the same way. Yes, you can offer help. Make sure it's help that builds capacity and not crutches. Instead of paying every bill, which um, I've really been dealing with recently. My brother is going through a reentry phase, and I'm like really trying to help him. Um, but instead of paying every bill that person has, try to sit down and create a budget together. Like, look, you can't do this, but you can do this, right? And then if you keep on this plan, then you'll be able to do that. If that makes sense. Instead of filling out every form, show them how to navigate those systems themselves. Instead of trying to solve every single conflict they run into, help them learn how to handle confrontation maturely. And here's something that's hard for a lot of families to hear sometimes, and that's that love means saying no. If you love them, you will say no, not out of anger, but just out of wisdom. No, that word, no, I can't bail you out this time, but I help you find a better way forward. No, I can't pay for everything for you, but I'll connect you to a resource that possibly could provide um, a means of like employment or means of financial recovery for you. Those are boundaries, not barriers. They're guardrails that keep relationships from crashing under pressure. And I've seen relationships crash under pressure because people just got fed up. I'm not paying it no more. When at the same time, they could have been teaching how to fish instead of providing fish. When those boundaries are respected, love stays pure, not transactional. Because when a person learns to stand on their own 2 feet, that's when you start to see the confidence, the dignity, and the purpose return to their life. And it isn't, and isn't that what we want? Don't we want like these people to be independent? Don't we? I wanted to be independent. I did not want to have to depend on somebody forever, but to see the people we love and to see the people that I love walk free in every sense of the word, that's the whole purpose of this podcast, right? That's the whole purpose of this podcast. So, another thing that's very vital that parents, loved ones, brothers, sisters, wives, that they need to encourage mental health and encourage emotional healing. Now, we talk a lot about getting back on your feet on this show, and we talk a lot about what's happening in a person's mind and their heart, because we believe, and I believe, as this platform developed, that this is the most important thing. Like, what's happening in that person's mind and their heart while they're going through the reentry phase, because prison does something to you. Even for the strongest, the experience reshapes how you trust, how you communicate, and even how you feel. It's constant hyper awareness, always watching, never resting. You don't unlearn that overnight. You just don't. So when someone comes home, their behavior might not match what you expect. They might isolate, lash out, or seem distant, like distant or far away. That doesn't always mean that they don't care. It just might mean they're relearning how to be human in open space again. All right. Now, let me tell you about my personal experience. That's where my loved ones came in. They came in not to diagnose me, but to see. To really see, try to understand. At first, I got a lot of encouragement on, they wanted me to talk, not just about my goals, but about those fears. And after a while, what they heard me say, they was like, "Oh shit, we don't want to hear that." So for you guys, I want you guys to encourage therapy, group meetings, or even just consistent check-ins with mentors or peers who've been through it. Have them listen to the podcast. If they hesitate, remind them that healing isn't weakness. It's a part of the freedom that they fought so diligently for. And for you, the family, you need healing too. I know my family needed healing. The system didn't just sentence one person, it strained the entire household. Families carry that trauma and they carry it for so long. The late night worry, the stigma, the missed birthdays, the silent shame. And as soon as you're out here in reentry and you mess up or, get in contact with the law or miss a bill or something, they'll think, "Oh, Lord, he's about to go back to prison." You're hanging with that cousin that you used to hang with back in the day. "Oh, he's going back to prison." So consider counseling together. Join a support group, create new rituals, maybe a Sunday dinner, a walk, or just something simple as journaling. That will allow open conversation without judgment. Because healing doesn't always look like a deep conversation. Sometimes you're just sitting on the porch, man, watching the sun going down together, just saying nothing, just sitting there, right? You can't rush emotional recovery, but you can nurture it. Because when someone feels emotionally safe, that's when they truly begin to live again and not simply survive. Now, now we all should celebrate the process, and that's one of the steps like we have to do. This is the most important one, I think, is the celebrations for real. In the world obsessed with instant results, we forget to clap for the small victories. But for someone re-entering society, those small moments are mountains. That first job call back. Hey, celebrate. Celebrate. Somebody call back and say, "Hey, we are interested in you." Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get the job. That doesn't mean they're going to get the job, but they're at least interested. Maybe that first rent payment made on time. You paid your rent. Man, let's celebrate that. The first time a parole officer says, keep up the good work. Celebrate those things because every one of them represents resilience, responsibility, and rebirth. Now, you can throw a little dinner to say, I'm proud of you. There's nothing wrong with that. Post a photo of the first day they went back to work. I can remember early on, I went back to school. And one of my best photos that I can remember, I can see it in my head when I was graduating from a little small community college, and my mom and my sister were there. I could see that picture in my head. It was like a celebration. They was like, "Boy, you came home, you went and got a little small degree, whatever." And and I was scared to death, right? I wasn't doing it for clout. I was doing it because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I had a plan. And that visibility when they were there with me, that mattered. That mattered. Because when people see their family celebrating effort, not perfection, it changes how people view themselves. It builds confidence. You're not doing it alone. When you're celebrating those victories with your family members, it lets them know that they're not alone, and it builds confidence. Now, you got to remember to separate identity from achievement, though, right? If your loved one stumbles, misses a deadline, loses a job, makes a bad decision, doesn't withdraw your love. Growth isn't linear. Progress doesn't mean perfection. What matters most is getting back up. Now, think about how powerful this is, okay? When someone fails but still feels supported, that's how you transform reentry from a checklist into a journey of transformation. When someone fails but they still feel supported, and that's going to breed consistency. And we should celebrate that consistency, celebrate learning, celebrate the courage to keep trying, because ultimately, reentry isn't just about surviving freedom, it's about learning how to own freedom. And loved ones, man, your belief, your voice, your presence, that's the soundtrack that plays under that journey. Keep playing it loud. If y'all were there from day one in the prisons, when y'all visitations and sending money, say it loud. Say it loud and proud because you were there, right? And now this person has the opportunity to be out here. They should be reminded of that. Most of us don't need that loudness for it, but others do, right? Now, here's what it comes down to. Coming home isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of redemption for both sides of the coin, right? When you give space and grace, you nurture patience. When you build trust or rebuild that trust, you repair a connection. So if you need help, go out and that's showing strength when you can ask for help. And when you can help without hindering, you're teaching strength. Encourage healing to help restore this human being. And most of all, man, when you celebrate progress, you create a legacy. That's how we change the narrative. I'm Antoine Rivers, and this has been the Conviction Fiction Podcast. If this episode spoke to you, and that transformation journey has been a part of your life, and I'm lucky to be a part of that with you. If you listen to this show, I thank you. I thank you. And I look forward to more shows. Comment, subscribe, help change the narrative. Because, like I said, if it spoke to you, talk about it. If this episode spoke to you, talk about it, live it. Because transformation doesn't stop when the gate opens. It only begins there. Please check out the book, No Turning Back. That's one of the books that I put out that talked about the journey. And I have some excerpts from some of the people that have been on the show that went along with that journey with me or shared their personal journeys. So until next time, family, keep believing, keep building, and keep changing the narrative. Peace.